but there you do have the problem of things like ultimates, right? So like if you have 70 borked, that actually does affect some meaningful content where balance actually matters a little. And I don't know how, I mean, I'm sure there's, you either say, okay, you just keep that content how it is currently, but then you're playing with a different rotation at 70 when you do Omega normal raid than Omega Savage. And
well, we've seen them, they were able to apply certain different logical conditions. So if they wanted to say the current level sync system as it exists is going to retain, we're going to retain that for ultimates, and then we're going to bring in this different level sync system that's going to apply to pretty much every other content that we have out in the game. And I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting, and it's not so much that I'm even like opposed to it. I think my thinking is that it means you basically cannot practice your ultimate or savage rotation until you're doing that content, because you don't get to do any muscle memory practice if, let's say, your 100 rotation is what you're always doing out in the world, even if you're doing Stormblood and 70 content. Yeah. But then when you do those specific things, all of a sudden it's reduced down, which is like that learning it, like that could just be part of doing ultimates and savages, and like that's fine. I'm not opposed to it, but it does kind of suck that you can't even practice that in a more like general way. Like you couldn't go do Heaven on High and be stuck at 70 and get really good at that, and then take that skill set into harder content.
Now, I got a couple comments here I would like to kind of pull up. Ray saying, if they reduce the button bloat, why does Viper require a piano keyboard to play it?
Because it's fun.
Well, I don't think it actually, I think what I like about the Viper, especially at level 100, is that you have skills that turn into other skills under certain conditions.
Viper's so deceptive. Like, it's so simple. It's so straightforward. It's like, actually, it's really fun, but it's kind of bonkers how simple it is in reality. But it looks like a lot.
It looks like there's a lot going on. And I find that it actually works really well on controller. And that's the only thing. It's like, I was like playing at sub 80. I was like, yeah, I really wish I had more. And then that more is there because you've already experienced it, and then you're in lower level content. And that ties right into Nevylink, who says, I mean, there are the Unreal versions, and that is something where I was hoping we might see them expand on Unreal, because Unreal could be that solution to the level sync in which that you just get to go run all the older content at the current level, and you don't then have to preserve you don't have to worry about impacting ultimate. You don't have to worry about impacting leveling roulette, etc. You can just be like, here's my ultimate, whatever. And then it's always going to be like, now it's all tuned up to level 100. You're going into it. You're doing that. Here's the rewards or whatever. But that would imply a lot more work, because we've seen them with Unreal, and you can catch me up because I'm not an expert on the game anymore. They were cycling them in, and when they would cycle one in, they take one out. Have they ever started doubling up or having more, or having ones return?
I know of they haven't done return, because it was doing a Realm Reborn, and then the past ones that they were doing was Heaven's Word. So they had Sophia, Zervan, and Thoradin was the final one of like the last one. So we don't they may go into Stormblood whenever they bring them back. So I don't think they brought them back yet. I will say Unreal is one of the things where I think I'm more sympathetic with how much it's easy to not realize balance shifting things, because like the level to which just having something like Divine Veil on a Paladin when facing Thoradin, and how that changes things versus doing him synced at 60 is kind of crazy. And so it's like I actually it's like all the ways in which you don't just have to balance for like potency, but also for the sheer difference of having 2 extra mitigation on a tank, right? And then like scaling that across all the different jobs and all their different weirdnesses. And so like I do think that like you could, with like, if you brought that back, if you do the like Unreal style back out to like normal dungeons and stuff, it's like you just have to accept that it's gonna be a little borked, unless they're willing to put in a ton of effort, which maybe they are. But I mean, they got to do something, because early most jobs don't feel, I would personally say, playable or like fun, even kind of fun, until 60, and even then only some feels fun at 60, and then a lot don't even feel good until like 80 at these days.
I think if they go and start like with what they did with Picto, where you have all the different elements like on one button, and then you can go into like another button to do even more damage, that it's like, oh, cool, you get all the elements on Pictomancer. Why doesn't Black Mage have all the elements? Well, like, what are you talking about? What's that? It's like, imagine if all of a sudden it's like I'm gonna open up with lightning and then fire and then finish off with like I don't know. They could do so much with the job. Well, and that's where I wonder with 8.0, like, you know, what is going to be their direction for that. I do wonder if we'll see that level, you know, kind of not level sync, but level restructure, level.
They got to do
something. And it's like, if we're going to see that, what's going to happen in the long run? And I think there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of things that they can be doing and probably will be doing. It's just like, that's where I'm like, is Picto, is Viper a preview of bigger changes, meaning that people get to go hands-on with it and they get to be like, oh, the skill swapping isn't as bad as I thought. It isn't the one button press to win fear that people kind of bring out when I've talked about this. Right. Yeah, Viper proves and Picto proves. Yeah.
And I think jobs have always been that. I think if you look at Reaper and Sage, it tells you a lot, and look at their design and how they took a lot of that philosophy and push that forward towards all the jobs into like Dawn Trail and as well. Or you look at when Dancer and Gunbreaker came out and continuation, a lot of those and how those ended up affecting a lot of design going into Endwalker and going forward. The new jobs to me have always been indicative of what should the near future to ish timeline of like what the team is thinking will represent. I mean, even if you just look at the 6.3 change to Paladin, and how that really evokes a lot of the design philosophy of that you can see in Sage and Reaper, I think is a good testament to that.
Absolutely. Now we got a question from chat. Yukino says, would Old Savage glam farms become easier as they improve the jobs by each expansion? And I'd say they do. It's not a question of if, but it's actually a question of like, yeah, it does.